school guest, you on school guest? Guest, yeah, it should, it's slow, and.
Wait, you have a Dell.
I have a Dell. What's wrong with a Dell?
Oh, it's just that they were all the same.
Oh. Oh, no. She has a computer. Not that. Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. This is the time and place of the City of St. Helena Planning Commission regular meeting for Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Commissioner Furtick, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Guerrero, could you call the roll and call us to order?
Commissioner Covell? Here. Commissioner Lopez is absent. Commissioner Anderson is also absent. Vice Chair Furtick?
Here.
And Chair Warner?
Here. Thank you. This is the time and place also for a public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the Commission may not engage in discussion nor take action on matters not described on the agenda. If you have any public forum comments, please observe the time limit of 4 minutes. Do we have any public forum comments? Seeing none, you're sure? Doesn't anybody want to jump up and join? No, that's fine. That's great. Next is our consent items. We have only one consent item. That's approval of our minutes of December 16th, 2025. In a minute, I'll entertain a motion. I'm asking for a minor correction and change to it, which I'll outline, and then we can have any other comments on it. Okay, if I go forward with my suggestion? My suggestion is that as a matter of routine, our minutes in the future should have a simple link to the website where the actual meeting video is accessible to the public and to those who read the minutes on a standalone basis. Of course, the city website has access to all the videos of all of our key meetings, and of course you can go on our staff reports and find access to the videos from that particular meeting. But I think it's also going to be useful if someone downloads the PDF of the actual minutes, that we have a link to the video so that everyone has a chance to see the complete meeting. That also helps us so we don't have to go into endless discussions in the actual minutes themselves. So that's the one change I would suggest, since that's now off the consent for any discussion. Any particular discussion of any other changes or comments on the minutes from my fellow commissioners? If not, I'll entertain, any comments from the public? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of December 16th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Guerrero, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Furtick?
Yes.
Commissioner Covell?
Yes.
And Chair Warner?
Yes, thank you. Our next item is our public hearings. And the first one is agenda item 5.1. And I know we have a staff presentation on that. So if we could go forward with that, and then we'll open it up for any public comments and commissioner discussion.
Thank you, Chair Warner. Good evening, Commissioners. The item before you tonight is a major sign permit requested by Royal We Signs at 929 Main Street. It's sign permit 25007. The applicant, Royal We Wines, has requested approval of a major sign permit to allow wall-mounted signage on their Main Street-facing facade of their building. The proposal includes 2 wall signs associated with their business. Because the number and total area of the wall-mounted signage exceeds the objective standards in the code, the application requires review and approval by the Planning Commission pursuant to the Municipal Code, Chapter 1727. So the location of this is indicated by the blue dot. This is Royal We Wines. You can see the facade of the building that's fronting Main Street here with a mock-up of the Royal We signs. This is identified as the primary sign, or STA, in the plans. And then there's also a smaller multi-panel sign beneath the awning that is referred to as the secondary wall sign, or STB. Both sides are facing Main Street, and there's no other signage on the building proposed this evening. So the first sign is a primary wall sign. This would be located above the main entrance. It is non-illuminated and consists of individual wall-mounted aluminum letters. It is approximately 48.5 square feet and 25.9 feet in length. It is mounted 12 feet above grade, and it is the primary business identification. Beneath that, this is the secondary wall sign. It is made up of multi-panel aluminum placards that display the logos of wine brands available in their tasting room. It is approximately 30.45 square feet and 6 feet in length, mounted 7.5 feet above grade. And today, there's actually additional text on what's the smaller blank sign that's to the left. This sign has been installed without the benefit of permit, but the applicants have submitted the request before you today, so they are in the process of legalizing this sign that's already been installed. So this is the code analysis. On the top, we've got the standards for all permanent signs, and I've highlighted in yellow the areas where these signs do not comply with the objective standards. So wall sign A is limited to 1 square foot of linear business frontage, not to exceed 40 square feet. And they have 48.5 square feet, so they've exceeded this standard by 8.5 square feet. The secondary wall sign meets that objective standard. It's under the 40 square feet. And combined, they exceed the 40 square feet by almost double. Beneath that, we've got standard for wall signs in the district. So there's two separate areas of the sign code that apply. One is just for all permit signs, and then the second is specific to the type of sign. So here we have the same maximum sign area, 40 square feet. They're allowed an unlimited number of signs so long as those signs meet the objective standards. And this also has an additional standard which regulates the width, so the linear width of the sign, and it limits it to 15% of the total building facade. So in this case, that would be 15.6 linear feet. So again, the primary sign exceeds that at 25.9 feet, and the secondary sign meets that at only 6 feet in linear width. And the applicant did submit this package, and then it came in as a resubmittal. And one of the comments that came up in their first issues letter, we addressed the total area and the length of these signs and how they exceeded it. And we asked the applicant, could you give us some indication of why you need the signage to be so large outside of the objective standards? And in their resubmittal, they indicated, a couple things. They had told staff that, one, they're really trying to make sure that their signage is visible to people who are driving along Main Street, who in this stretch of Main are driving a bit faster than they would be downtown. And second, they felt that the nearby signage at Gott's Roadside and Nimbus Arts, which also exceed these standards, set a precedent that they felt they could also utilize. So staff did do some research trying to locate city records about these two signs that they specifically referenced. Was not able to locate any city records that these were approved through a major sign permit or other discretionary process like design review. And the code does say that the presence of other signage or other things in the built environment that exceed the standards do not set a precedent for us to do that in the future, and that each sign application should be evaluated independently based on the current regulations. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of context about existing signs in the nearby vicinity. But with that in mind, staff was able to make the findings to support this. The sign code does explicitly say that the Planning Commission holds the discretionary power to approve signs outside of those objective standards, not through an exception or variance, just through the approval of the major sign permit process. So the staff report contains the findings for approval. However, the Planning Commission does retain discretion to determine whether those findings can or cannot be made. And if this evening the Commission does not agree with staff's affirmative findings, you have also been given two options. One, to either direct the applicant to modify their proposed signage and continue the item to a date certain or uncertain in the future, or two, to direct staff to return with a resolution of denial if the applicant, through the process, does not feel that they could make the modifications that the Planning Commission proposes. Could you please go back to my slide? Thank you. So the recommendation before you this evening, staff's recommendation would be to determine that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, pursuant to the guidelines section 15311 class 11, which exempts on-premise signs, and to approve the major sign permit SP 25077 to install the two non-illuminated signs on the primary facade. I do also want to point out that this is within the Highway 29 specific plan, which does largely just references back to the municipal code. The one standard that is within this Highway 29 specific plan is that signs shall be non-illuminated. These are non-illuminated signs. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. I have my fellow commissioners. Any questions?
Not at the moment.
Commissioner Furdak? I want to point out that the findings in the resolution are what we're required to do in terms of 1727-050. And I wanted to understand the number 6 of that the sign contributes to the historical or architectural character of the community. I think what the finding is, it uses durable materials and professional cohesive design that supports the visual character of the downtown streetscape. In that regard, although the applicant refers to Gott's and Nimbus, and I'm very familiar, I actually live nearby, not 500 feet, but I live nearby and go past that set of storefronts all the time. Nimbus and Gott, whether they were grandfathered in or for whatever purpose, it seems to me they're the most comparable retail sites in the area which use signage that seems similar in scope to what's proposed here. And is that what we're really saying here in terms of the number 6 finding in the resolution?
I think that is a reasonable way to approach this. I mean, it's not a historic building, it's not within a historic district, so we really are looking at the character of the surrounding built environment. So yes, I would agree with that, Chair Warner.
Thank you. And I had one other question. It's actually what I understand to be number 4 in the findings, which I think is a general requirement, but it also allows any other adjoining business owners, if they have a concern about how a sign may affect their customers and their representation. Basically, number 4 says the sign will not negatively impact surrounding properties. I know the record reflects that we've had no opposition from nearby businesses or anybody else in the community, but did any other nearby businesses have informal comments on the sign?
I have not received any formal or informal comments on the sign.
Okay. Well, in that regard, I think the finding in terms of negatively impact surrounding properties really depends upon if some of the other property owners were to believe that they were negatively impacted, they would be here. Those are all my questions. I'd like to, if no further questions from the commissioners, like to open up for any public hearing, open up a public hearing for comment. If the applicant is here, anything the applicant would like to say? Okay. If not, we'll close the public hearings, bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any further discussion?
I'm just curious if that presentation will be linked on the agenda for record, because I didn't see it in the online agenda.
Yes, we can link it to the agenda for the record.
That's a really good point. We ought to, as we have late filed or late versions of presentations, it'd be good to ultimately have them in the record as well. Thank you. That's a good comment. Other comments or discussion?
I do have a comment. I'm all in favor of, supporting our businesses and in any way to help them succeed. But in this case, I really question, the primary sign is 8.5 square feet over the allowance. And then there's another allowance for the secondary sign. And I can totally understand why that secondary sign is important to this business, especially considering the various brands that are being tasted in this tasting room. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But what doesn't make as much sense to me is why ask for an 8.5 square feet exception when you don't have to? And I almost would like to see what a 40 square foot sign, it's kind of like people come to us and ask for exceptions. And you want to give them when there's strong purpose, but you don't want to hand them out like it's candy. So I really feel like a 40 square foot sign, primary sign, would probably give a strong presence in that space. And I don't know, a part of me is like, let's give exceptions when we really need to give exceptions, And I feel like there's a strong case for that second exception, that second sign, and the space that it needs. But I'm not so sure there's a strong case for that primary sign being over 40 square feet. So that's my comment.
Let me respond, because I had a similar concern. Maybe the staff knows an answer to this. How did the applicant respond when notified that they'd installed the secondary sign without a permit?
This secondary sign being installed without a permit didn't go through any formal code enforcement actions. So this is just informal discussion.
So we don't know from the applicant why they misread or misapplied what's required?
I do not know.
Is the applicant here tonight? Yes. Yeah, and again, I think Commissioner Furtick raised a good point. And I also, by the way, I'm very familiar with the area where you are, and that's why I mentioned GOTS and Nimbus Arts. But Commissioner Furtick makes a good point here, because I also noticed that you put in the sign, the secondary sign, without asking for a permit, and then we have the size issue. And part of this is also understanding, in terms of the retail business, you may not be able to hire a consultant or hire an expert to tell you exactly what to do. You probably interpret it the way you do. But if you're the applicant, could you respond to those 2 points?
Yes. My name is Thomas Rivers Brown, and I live at 1106 Clark Street in Napa. And Matt and I have been leasing this facility or this building for about 6 months. We got permission and a local business license to open it. We put the secondary sign up, not knowing that we needed a permit for it, but basically just as a way to mark the building to make sure people knew they were in the right place when they came for a tasting. And then we were alerted when we went in to apply for the primary sign that that was put up without permission. So we immediately began the process of trying to get compliant and get in front of you guys. It took a little while to get here. It took a few months to get here. And then in terms of the primary sign, it wasn't our kind of drive to go above the legal limit. It was more about developing a sign that was in scale to the building. And that's where the size came from. Because I think that sign, the 40 square foot or the 40 is a cap, right? So you could have a building that was 200 feet long, but you would still be capped at 40 feet. Did I see that right from the regulations? So basically, I understand the regulation, but we were just trying to find something that to scale made sense on the building.
And that's helpful, because I know Commissioner Furtick, I think I'm very sympathetic to the fact that if an applicant makes a judgment that they can't apply the objective standards for a sign, the 40 foot, but view it as a size that they view as necessary for the building size that they have, then they do have to come to us, and you're in effect asking us for mercy.
Right.
on
No,
that-
exactly.
on
But if
that. But
if
we
you-
understand, I understand why.
Yeah, and if you refer back to the initial photo that showed the sign on the building, you can see how long that building is, and that's really where the size of the sign came from.
Okay.
Although I question that. Can we put the slide back up for the benefit of everyone in the audience that shows the primary sign? Oh,
So that is the entire building in the bottom right. So you can see just how long the entire building is.
yes, although you can see that it would be near impossible to put a sign across the entire building because that entrance to the building really has an elevated front.
Yeah, no,
where,
for sure.
Where
You-
that sign is featured. But I do question, and that's why that fits, so prominently there.
Right.
As has other signs of businesses before you.
Right.
And to me, like other buildings, in town. So that's where I see, the entrance, obviously your customers identifying the entrance of that building.
Right.
But I do wonder, like, I in this case, and I do understand your point, that there could easily be a case of a building size where, 40 square feet, may not be proportionate to the building. And I think of Dean and DeLuca and Gary's sign, and I remember when Gary's, went in, and Gary's sign was enormous.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Now, they're in the county and not in the city of St. Helena. And it was actually even outsized for that large of a building, in my opinion.
Right.
So, in this case, did you try to see, when you knew that there was a 40 square foot, maximum in the code, did you ask your graphic designer or the sign company to try to size it and to see if it worked?
Well, we did, and you can also see one of the concessions we made. Those are individual letters, not on a sign background. So if you looked at the
right.
square footage of the letters themselves, it's a really small number. The footprint itself is big,
Of course,
but
yeah.
the letters themselves are
That's
small.
kerning, and that's how you space the letters.
Yeah, but instead of attaching them to a solid background that then got attached to the building, those are just individual letters. And that was one way we were trying to mitigate the size of the sign without losing the impact of the sign on the building.
I think the square footage is counted by the rectangular shape of the outer portion. You can correct me.
There is no rectangular portion here. It's just the letters.
It would be the rectangular shape that fits around the letters, but he's
Yeah.
correct that if there was a backing on behind those letters, that we would include the entire backing as well. So
Right.
And that was one of the ways we tried to mitigate the size by making it less impactful by not having a backing behind the letters. That was a different
Got it.
color, for instance, or something like that.
Got it. Yeah.
And we looked at it scale model with our sign designer a few times, and this is what we felt fit the space. without being obnoxious or, on the other hand, being diminished. Just a personal opinion.
And I might comment is that we've talked a lot about objective standards here, and it seems to me objective standards make sense when you're in a kind of architectural design of a building where you really are talking about. But for me, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't have any expertise to judge when a sign is too big. And we have codes that say, here's where you got to come in for a major sign. And then I think that where there's a kind of a tiebreaker on this, I would defer to the business owner in terms of their judgment of what they would like to see, as long as it doesn't clearly impact comparable signage in the area. For example, and this is where I think this would, for me, would not be a precedent. If we put this sign up the main part of Main Street, right? If we actually had this size of sign next to a lot of the other retail shops on Main Street, I think you might have some of those other retail shop owners complain because there's not a consistency. But I personally don't see this sign, even though it's 1/6 bigger than it would be required to be. I don't see myself being able to make a judgment that it should be capable of being reduced if the retail owner doesn't want it reduced. You see where I'm going on that? It's kind of the tiebreaker goes to the retail owner if there's no other impact in terms of the other businesses. That's just where I am. Further questions or comments from commissioners?
I guess for me, I'm just happy to see this building being used and bringing some business back into town and sparks more people coming up here doing stuff. I'm going to leave out my personal opinion on the sign because I don't think that's for me to say. But if the owner thinks, or the applicant thinks that this is the size that fits for them and works for them, and I saw in the statement that, with people driving right there, I mean, there's a lot going on with GOTS and a lot of other buildings going on. So I get, needing to, have a nice size sign, plus you can't illuminate anything. So, I don't have a personal objection to it, just knowing that, I'm glad to see something in this building being used. So I thank you for bringing a business to our town.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yep. Me too. Any other further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to accept the staff recommendation. Did I do that correctly?
Sure, that works.
The staff resolution, what is it? It's a recommendation.
It's on the screen also,
Yes,
if that
sorry,
helps.
I found it. For both items.
Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay. Ms. Guerrero, call the roll.
Commissioner Covell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Furtick,
Yes.
and Chair Warner.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, one down. We're on to item 5.2, correct? Another sign. Have a short presentation on that.
Yes, Ms. Gamera will be presenting the next item.
Okay, thank you, Chair Warner. So we have a request by Todd Johnston from Johnston Sign Company on behalf of Orin Swift Cellars for Planning Commission approval of major sign permit to modify and enlarge an existing internally illuminated sign, wall sign located at 1321 Main Street. within the Central Business Zoning District. And a little bit of a background here. Orin Swift Cellars has operated at 1325 Main Street since 2012 and expanded its operations to include 1321 Main Street through use permit amendment approved on. That same year, the business received design review approval for exterior building modifications, along with sign permit approval to install an internally illuminated wall sign measuring 7.15 square feet, consisting of the letters OSC, with 2 overlapping red neon rings representing their brand logo. The building frontage at 1321 Main is 26 feet, approximately 26 feet, and the frontage at 1325 Main, but please note it is not included in this proposal or in the sign area calculation. The applicant requests Planning Commission approval to modify the existing illuminated wall sign by replacing the text OSC with Orin Swift on the primary frontage of the building. The intent of the modification is to improve visitor recognition and increase walk-in visitations. The modification will extend the length of the text from 73.5 inches to 94 inches. And it will reduce the letter size from 14 inches tall to 12 inches. No changes are proposed to the existing neon rings. And I have both signs, the existing and the proposed, on the screen. The proposed signage includes one set of individual reverse pan channel letters with built-in white LED halo illumination. The proposed Orin Swift letters are 7.8 square feet. In addition to the rings, which measure 14.8 square feet, the total sign area minus the overlap is 19.2 square feet total. The signage in the Central Business District is regulated by St. Helena Municipal Code Chapter 17.27, which sets standards for sign size, number, location, and design to ensure compatibility with building architecture and surrounding streetscape. Here in this graph, I have included the standards for all permanent signs. The ones in red is what they do not meet. For example, the maximum sign height under standards for all permanent signs. It's 20 feet is allowed. They are proposing 20.5 feet height. Although the proposed sign is slightly over the maximum permitted mounting height of 20 feet, the sign would be installed in the same location as the existing sign, making the half a foot difference immaterial to the overall proposal. Also, the sign width, the maximum shall not exceed 15% of the building facade according to the standards for wall signs. They are proposing 94 inches in length, which when we do the math for the building facade at 26 feet, it comes out to about 30%. So it doubles the building, what's allowed for the length of the sign. Now we have the illumination. I do want to note that during staff review of a previous similar sign application, the inconsistencies in the municipal code were identified regarding the treatment of illuminated reverse pan channel letters. The city attorney did advise processing request as an allowed sign type pending correction of the code language, which will be addressed at the next sign code cleanup. For the proposed signs, the letters would be reverse pan channel letters with halo illumination, and the letters will be illuminated within using steady stationary white LEDs. Staff received one letter of support regarding the application, which has been provided in the packet for you. And for the reasons described above, staff recommends the Planning Commission determine that the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15311, Class 11A of the CEQA guidelines, and approve the major sign permit for 1321 Main Street to modify and enlarge an existing illuminated wall sign as described in this report, subject to the findings in St. Helena Municipal Code Section 17.27.050E and the conditions of approval included with the attached resolution. This concludes my report, and I am available for any questions, and I believe the applicant is as well here present to answer questions as well.
I'll defer first to my fellow commissioners. Any questions?
No?
No.
I have one question. We find in the findings for approval that the total sign area exceeds the allowable building width by 15%, or exceeds the 15% building width limit. When I look at the existing sign, did the existing sign exceed the 15% building width?
So I do want to note that because the existing sign was approved in 2022, this was actually adopted with the previous sign code, which is completely different than what our new sign code is. Therefore, what was approved before is different. The standards are different than what we have now.
That makes sense, because when I eyeball it, again, I'm going to violate what I said with the other sign hearing, is I have no personal opinion or expertise on sign width or how it looks, but I can tell you personally, and look, you don't have to put it back up, looking at the existing sign as it was versus the new sign, I can't see any difference in width. And I think that's why, basically, is that the previous sign was under previous code requirements.
Yeah, the previous sign measures 7.15 square feet, while the proposed is 7.8 square feet, so.
Seems like a very small difference.
I will comment that I think we need to revisit this 15% in length. So this came up, and it was in the discussion, I think, that the applicant submitted. They noted that there were other types of signs, like signage on an awning or signage on a canopy, that afforded much more square footage area in comparison. And it makes me question why on a building we would restrict it so much. So I do think this should be up for discussion. Obviously, not necessarily in relation to what we're discussing right now, but I think it's worthy of definitely revisiting this, because I'm not sure why it's so restrictive.
And this really echoes, I think, what Commissioner Covell, you've been saying, which is we need to go and look at how things have been applied in a design sense on these objective standards. And it may be that they don't make as much sense as they did originally when we did the zoning code update. So I share that. Let's put it on the list. We're going to put this one on the list anyway for a little inconsistency in the code.
Yeah, and if I could add, Chair Warner and Vice Chair Furtick, and this conversation has come up before, where we ask, where did that standard come from? So I'm happy to reach out to the zoning code consultant, and because they do lots of sign codes for a lot of cities, and ask them, is this something that you've been using across the board in downtown areas, or is this a typo? Should it really be 50%? Because if you do look at the graphic, it almost looks like it really meant to say 50%. So the proportionality is a little bit off in the graphic, but yet, so I completely get where you're coming from, that we should at least confirm and then figure out, do we really need that standard, or are we fine just with the total area and leave it at that and not have to measure length? So we will investigate, and most likely Ms. O'Neill will get back to you about that.
I
Super.
would just add, like, when we had our original signage code from the previous code, just to understand the consultant, how far they went off of our original code and why. We paid that consultant to change and update our zoning code to make it clearer, not necessarily to change the code language, but to make it clearer and easier for users. And if they did change the policy without having been reviewed, discussed, I find that I find objection to that because it's costing people money.
And I think we all agree, all by way of saying, put it on our list for reconsideration. I think that's good.
I like this new sign. I can personally say my opinion is that I do like seeing what the words mean, like the O and the S, because
Right.
I didn't know. So I think it's really helpful for wayfinding
Yep.
for people in our town. So thanks.
Very good. If no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair
Did
Warner,
we
did
ask-
we open the
I don't-
public
Oh, I'm
comment?
sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
I
sorry.
don't think we
Open that-
asked.
Sorry, we're moving too quickly. Maybe the quickness for the applicant is fine, but any public comments? Good reminder, thank you. Any public hearing comments? We're open for public hearing. Anything we would like the applicant to address? I don't think so, or if the applicant wanted to address anything. I agree. If no public hearing comments, I'll close public hearings and bring it back for discussion and potentially for a motion, which we may be ready to do.
I'm ready to make a motion
Okay, go ahead.
to approve the major sign permit for 1321 Main Street as recommended by staff.
I second.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Vice Chair Furtick,
Yes?
Commissioner Covell,
Yes.
and Chair Warner.
Yes. Very good. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. You're welcome. Now we're on to item 5.3, request for tentative parcel map for 2 existing parcels. Ready for the presentation?
And Senior Planner O'Neill will be presenting this item.
Okay, so the item before you tonight is a request for a tentative parcel map approval to allow for 2 existing parcels totaling approximately to create 3 residential lots in the low-density residential zoning district. The file number is TPM 25002. Will you take over? This is going a little haywire. Okay, so here we have an aerial photograph showing the location of the subject parcels. This is on the dot right now is on one of the parcels. This is 2 parcels, so it's where the dot is, and then also the parcel directly below that. Those are the 2 parcels that are in question to be subdivided. They are 2 contiguous residential lots located on the east side of Sylvaner Avenue. They are within the city's urban limit line and also within the high fire severity zone. The combined area is 1.78 acres, and the existing 2 parcel configuration was created by a previously recorded parcel map. And since recordation of that map, one of those parcels has been conveyed to a separate owner. I think that'll be more clear on another slide. So here are some photos that were submitted by the applicant. This is an image looking up the shared driveway. The home that you see in the forefront is 1600 Sylvaner. Beyond that is 1620 Sylvaner. And this vacant lot in front is what is proposed to be split off to create a new parcel. And then the photo to the right of that is actually taken if you were standing on this shared driveway looking at that vacant lot there. You can see the residence beyond it would be on the neighboring parcel. I wanted to include this because it is a sloped site, so I just wanted to give you an idea of the topography and the slope of that site right there. So here is the existing parcel configuration. The previously recorded parcel map was, axed in a different way, so the the text on this is upside down, but I wanted to try to make it really easy to follow. So what you can see at the bottom is Sylvaner Avenue, and you've got the existing parcels. The purple one is what is currently 1600 Sylvaner. The blue is 1620 Sylvaner, and you can see at the top there is an interesting kind of zigzag lot line where those two meet on the kind of westerly side of the two parcels. And this is my own mock-up. This wasn't submitted by. I just wanted to include some colors to make it a little bit easier to follow. So this would be the new parcel configuration. On the bottom, you can see in purple what would become Lot 1. It is proposed to be at 17,000 square feet. It is currently vacant. There is no development proposed with this application, so it would remain vacant. Lot 2 beyond that is currently what's known as 1600 Sylvaner. It is developed with a single-family residence and associated accessory buildings. And beyond that is what would become Lot 3, 1620 Sylvaner. It's also developed with a single-family residence and associated accessory structures. And what I've put the dashed lines on is the area where there would be a lot line reconfiguration. When this application first came in, I did consult with the Director of Public Works, Joe Leach, to ensure that this reconfiguration of the lot line could be done within the parameters of the tentative parcel map itself and would not require a separate lot line adjustment. So all of this is considered within the tentative parcel map application. And the purpose of, changing this lot line is really just to make, I'll let the applicant speak to it, but I think it creates a simpler boundary here. There's a lot going on within that little area. This is a zoomed in section, so you can see that there's some different utility easements, a well, some things like that. So just to create ease on these two parcels. Can you please go to the next slide? Before we go on to the recommendation, I do want to touch on the CEQA analysis. So because this is a steeply sloped site, the CEQA analysis that we would typically use on a tentative parcel map would not apply. As such, there has been a common sense CEQA exemption applied here. I wanted to bring that to your attention. I think most of the tentative parcel maps that we see have the minor land division class 15 CEQA exemption. So this is just something different than what we would typically have. Future development on the newly created parcels may require additional CEQA consideration, but that would be subject to discretionary review at that time. The staff report contains findings for approval. The application is consistent with the general plan, the zoning requirements, and also staff has made affirmative tentative parcel map findings. The existing residents and both of the existing residences are currently served by water and sewer service. The staff report does have indicate that 1620 Sylvaner is currently served by private well and septic. However, the applicant engineer today informed me that both of the existing residences are served by city sewer. So that is something that is a diversion from what's in the staff report. I can let them speak more to that whenever they present. So with that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission find the project exempt from CEQA and accept the required findings and adopt the attached resolution to approve the requested tentative parcel map subject to the conditions of approval attached to the staff report. I'm available for any questions, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from commissioners before we open for public hearing?
Nope.
I think it's included in the report, but the proposed new lot 1, would also be served by city water and sewer if it were developed, correct?
That's correct.
Great. Yeah, I thought.
And
I think I had a previous question on application of the, any changed water neutrality policy. If I understand correctly, since there's no application for development here yet, any new water neutrality policy would apply if that application is subsequent to the city council adoption. Is that correct?
Correct. I understand it. It's whatever happened, whatever policy is in place at the time of building permit. I will defer to our assistant public works director if he'd like to add anything more.
I don't need to add anything more. Maya nailed it.
Okay, thank you. That was my primary question. I have no other questions. We should open for public hearing. Are there anyone in the public who'd like to comment on this? Seeing none, we can close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion. Any further questions or discussion?
I don't have anything to say about this.
Commissioner Burdick?
Nor do I.
Okay, I will entertain then a motion.
I motion to accept the recommendation of staff and adopt attached resolution approving the requested tentative parcel map, TPM 2500, subject to the conditions of approval. And
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Covell,
yes.
Vice Chair Furtick,
Yes?
and Chair Warner.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving ahead. We're on to 5.4, which I think is very interesting. So do we have a presentation on 5.4?
Yes, we do. We actually have both a brief staff presentation, and the applicant also has some slides and information to share about their proposal. But we will start with the staff presentation.
Very good.
all right. Thank you for that introduction, Director DeRosa. So the item before you is the pre-submittal application for the Cliff Family Winery redevelopment project at 1709 Main Street. The file number is PL25036. Okay, so the purpose of this pre-submittal review is to provide early feedback to the applicant before a formal application is submitted, to identify any potential issues that may be addressed during the permitting process, provide an opportunity for community members as well as yourselves to provide early input, and no formal action will be taken by the Planning Commission this evening, nor are any of your comments binding. Anything that comes before you as a formal submittal will be reviewed at that time based on the codes that we're reviewing the project against. So really, we're just looking for some feedback on the project and the concept. So the location is highlighted here in blue. This is at the corner of Main Street and Vidovich Avenue. This is where the Cliff Family Winery tasting room currently is, along with Azteca Market, some other administrative offices, and other hospitality uses. It's also located within the mixed-use zoning district. So this is a 1.5 acre parcel. It's within the MU zoning district as well as the Highway 29 specific plan. Currently improved with a variety of different uses on the site. This is the site plan as it currently exists. What you don't see is the back of the site where 1334 Vidovich is. If there's a building with some administrative offices there as well. Prior to the 2019 general plan update, the site was zoned service commercial, but when the mixed-use zoning district was introduced, this became mixed use. And it does front the planned Napa Valley Vine Trail Main Street alignment. So in the future, we expect that the Napa Valley Vine Trail will be going right in front of the site. There's a lot on this slide. I will try to briefly summarize it. I know Scott is going to also go into this in more detail. But the project overview is that they wish to retain 2 of the buildings on site, which is 1709 Main Street, where the tasting room is, as well as the administrative offices at 1334 Vidovich. So that's the building at the very rear of the site. And they would demolish 5 existing structures and construct 5 new structures. So I've got a larger image of the site plan on the next slide, so you'll be able to see this with a little more detail. But those 5 new structures are an approximately 3,500 square foot restaurant building with 1,150 square feet of outdoor covered seating, approximately 2,800 square foot restaurant support building, an 1,100 square foot piazza support building, and 2,700 square foot office and patio building with additional covered outdoor area. There would be really central to this is an outdoor piazza area, which would have outdoor dining, flexible event programming, and would be oriented towards Main Street, really with the goal of activating the pedestrian access as well as the bicycle vehicular access along the Vine Trail. The parking on site would be consolidated to the rear, and access from Vidovich Avenue, and an existing driveway approach along Main Street would be the curbs would be returned to the sidewalk configuration. Overall, this will reduce the building footprint on the site. So here's that proposed site plan in more detail. So you can see where the tasting room is. There's a proposal to add more outdoor seating oriented towards Main Street. The restaurant building where Azteca Market currently is would be demolished and rebuilt to be activating along Main Street. And I think something that's will be going into greater detail is one of the main requests and big topic of conversation tonight is that the applicant is looking to get feedback on the support for a front setback variance. In the MU district, there is a requirement for a maximum 10-foot setback, and they are looking for early feedback on whether the commission would be supportive of allowing a greater setback. So we'll go into that more in additional slides. Beyond the restaurant, you can see outdoor piazza support area as well as restrooms. The restaurant support, which would really serve as back of house support for the tasting room as well as the restaurant. And then offices with a outdoor stage that is oriented towards that central piazza area. There is also a planned area for a trash and refuse, screened enclosure. The final square footage of that, all of these things this is very high level conceptual at this point, but the general location of it is along the rear behind the parking area there. So at this time, staff has identified the required entitlements would include major design review to ensure that the new structures and site design conform with the general plan, Highway 29 specific plan, and mixed use district zoning standards, and ensure that the site and building design are appropriate for the site as well as its surrounding. A variance to allow for an increased front setback along Main Street. A demolition permit to allow for the removal of the existing structures. CUP amendments, there are, as outlined in the staff report, there's quite a lengthy history of conditional use permit entitlements that have been granted for the various uses that exist on the site. So modifying, at a minimum, modifying the existing use permit for the Cliff Family Tasting Room to allow for expanded outdoor seatings, events, and live or amplified music if that is indicated in the official project submission, and also to consolidate the historic use permit entitlements and just get the record really clear on what's going on here on the site. A minor use permit might be required if the proposed restaurant meets the definition of a full service restaurant over a counter service restaurant. In my preliminary discussions with the applicant, it does sound like they are leaning more towards a full-service restaurant with alcohol sales. A CUP for outdoor storage contingent on a forthcoming zoning ordinance amendment, which we will also discuss in subsequent slides, as well as sign permits for individual signs or a sign program in alignment with the Highway 29 specific plan requirements. So on the left here, we have the existing configuration, and on the right is the proposed, and this is just zooming in on the front area of the site. What you can see is 1789 Main, which is currently occupied by Azteca Market. And you can see that there is a 10-foot wide water easement that goes from the front lot line 10 foot into the site here. The existing building has a 27, I think it's 27 and 8-inch setback. And then there's also a PG&E easement that goes along the northerly side lot line. On the right, we can see the proposed, and here they are showing an 18-foot setback for the new restaurant building. I would like the applicant to speak to whether they want an 18-foot setback or a 20-foot setback. The project narrative says up to 20 feet. I think this is the language give them some wiggle room just to give them some flexibility, but the plans do show currently an 18-foot setback from the front lot line. Public Works requires that within a public utility easement, there can be no obstruction. So no footprint of a building, no eaves. It has to be clear from the ground to the sky. So this 10-foot water easement really creates a constraint if they want to develop within the front part of their site.
So can I ask a clarifying question? Is the current building, so the current building setback, whereas Azteca is even further than, how far back is the current setback?
Currently, the setback is 27.
Okay, it is. It is.
It's an existing.
Larger.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because in a lot of zones we have minimum setbacks. The mixed use zone has a maximum setback. So
And that is my next question.
yeah.
Why?
Why?
So I think that's a good question for Director DeRosa.
Yeah, so mixed use, think of, some of the larger projects in Southern California, Paseo, Colorado, where you're basically looking to have a real urban edge. This is considered, more of on the higher end of intensity and development. And so when we had looked at other codes, that was kind of a hybrid of what, not necessarily for big cities, but for small cities. And so that's where we ended up. We do know that through our PD overlay, that allows relief for an applicant aside from a variance. If they go, well, that works or that doesn't work, but I like that, but I don't like that, and they want to just create their own zoning code for a project, we felt that there's some off-ramps in the zoning code for them to say, well, this is or isn't working, and how they can still move forward with the project. So we weren't too concerned about it, but it is also speaking to the Highway 29 specific plan very much encourages active frontages, does not want to see parking in the front, where the typical strip mall development of the 70s and the 80s, those trends were to have a strip of landscaping and then you have all your parking and then the buildings in the back. We'll just think this is the reverse. So we also thought that by creating that type of, we want forward development to be forward active sidewalks, that recognize the spirit and the intent of that specific plan.
I think we had a conversation earlier. I think this might help too, because I was asking, because I saw in the applicant narrative that the other street frontages along that side of the road, most of them were 25 feet based on a previous code. And Maya told me that, Director DeRosa told me that previously these were zoned something different, service commercial and not mixed use, and the mixed use designation came in this recent general plan update, or
The 2023 zoning code.
the new zoning code. So this new zoning code changed the designation from service commercial to mixed use, and then it had these new regulations.
Maybe we should complete the presentation. I have some questions as well, but maybe get through the whole thing. But these are very good questions. They also echo some of the questions I would
Just
have.
out of, Maya told me though, just one thing was that before it was a was it maximum setback of 35 feet or like
A minimum,
It was
a minimum of 35 feet.
before. So now it's saying max 10, which is significant change in language.
And this is actually something that I discussed with Mr. Jansen. Water easement on all of the adjacent properties as well. And something that he explained to me is that until we have the title report in hand, we can't really know that. So when we are looking at, rezoning these properties and setting the setbacks, we don't necessarily have that granular level of detail to know where there's these existing easements. So they come out of the woodworks when we get the development applications. And it is true that the parcels, both to the north and south, have existing non-conforming setbacks. Most of them in around 25 feet, some of them in excess of 25 feet, but I don't believe any of them meet the prior 35-foot requirement. So just a lot of non-conformity in the area generally. Okay, we can move to the next slide. So, here I've provided some justification for the variance. We've gone through that the maximum front yard setback in the MU district is 10 feet. They're proposing 18 to 20 feet. And this constraint here really is the 10-foot public utility easement along that Main Street frontage, which does justify the request for a variance. And so long as they're meeting all of the other design guidelines for the Highway 29 specific plan, which really do speak to activating your frontage and having this pedestrian scaled design, which is certainly something that the applicant is interested in doing. Their main impetus for this is to activate along the Vine Trail and really pull pedestrian and cyclists from the Vine Trail into this redesigned site. And we've already talked about some of these contextual factors, the previous zoning of service commercial, which was consistent with surrounding parcels, that the existing buildings do have those greater front setbacks, non-conforming front setbacks, and that the proposed setback would be compatible with the established development pattern along Main Street, as well as the public works requirement for no permanent obstructions within the utility easement. So here I've just listed the findings that are required. I have not provided any staff response. I just wanted them to be here for you all to look at and consider, especially if we're going to be giving early guidance on whether we believe a variance, if that is the direction that we would go in, would be supportable. So the first is that there's no special circumstances applicable to the property, that there are special circumstances applicable to the property, including size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, and that the strict application of the code would deprive the property of the privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and under the identical zoning district. So my response here would be that the special circumstance is the existence of this public utility easement. And that the second is that the special circumstance was not created by an act of the property owner. This is a public utility easement. This is our city water. And that granting the variance would not authorize a use or activity not otherwise allowed. It would not. Granting the variance would not be materially detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. It would not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties, nor would it materially impair the purpose of the intent of the title or the public interest, or adversely affect the general plan. I would say that none of those things would be true in this case. In fact, I think we might be increasing public welfare by making sure that we can access the water lines in the event that we need to do some service or there's a leak. And finally, that the variance is consistent with the general plan and any applicable specific plan. So here, this is where we would really be looking to make sure that all of the design guidelines of the specific plan were implemented, and that granting a variance wouldn't create any adverse impacts. However, there is an alternative consideration. I did not go into this in detail in the staff report, but after discussion with Director DeRosa, we did want to include it for your consideration. So 17.34, there's a typo here. It's 0.080D of the municipal code. So this is in the definitions of in unusual cases that the community development director has the authority to establish the location of a setback and yard standards in relation to any existing or proposed structures. So the combination of the following could constitute an unusual circumstance. There's an existing 10-foot public utility easement that's reducing the buildable depth, that the surrounding built pattern reflects larger setbacks under former zoning, and that the Planning Commission might recommend that the director apply this provision as an administrative alternative to a variance. So would also love for you to opine on whether a variance is a preferred path forward, or whether this constitutes something that could be defined as an unusual circumstance. There's no definition in the zoning code of unusual circumstance, so that's something for you to consider. And in this little snippet here, I just wanted to highlight what the surrounding zoning is. So Vidovich Avenue, I don't have well, the long street is Vidovich. That is the site in question. That's mixed use. Thank you, Commissioner Cavell. Yep, so we've got, above that is our site in question, mixed use. On the other side of Vidovich, it's also mixed use, but above that, it's service commercial. Across the street, it's service commercial. So there is a variety of zoning designations right here in this area, which I wanted to point out. You can also see in the aerial the existing pattern of development where we do have those existing non-conforming setbacks.
Can you tell me in that plan which ones, so all the ones that were changed to mixed use, were they all service commercial before?
I believe that they were all service commercial along that corridor. And our mixed use zone really is kind of limited. There's just a handful of other parcels to the north of this that are also mixed use, but most of our mixed use sites are right here on this Main Street corridor.
What is the yellow one?
That is a good question. That might be.
Just out of curiosity. You don't have to answer. It's really not relevant.
The green is usually indicating an ag use. Like the blue green is quasi-public. So that green kind of L shape. My best guess is that it's an A20 site.
I do have some questions, just because I couldn't.
I'm not quite finished, but
Oh, okay,
yeah.
good. Maybe
We can move to the next slide. So moving on to outdoor storage, there's two support buildings that meet the definition of on-site storage. The mixed-use district does not permit on-site storage, outdoor or indoor on-site storage as a primary or accessory use. And similar uses in the mixed use and central business districts have been rendered non-conforming with the 2023 zoning code update. The proposed support buildings on the site are to serve the restaurant, the tasting room, and the piazza operations. So think dry storage, alcohol storage, storing chairs and umbrellas at night, things that you would want to put away so they're not just outdoors all the time. The accessory use limits how much an accessory use to a primary use, like the total area of it. So you can have either 15% of an individual business can be utilized, 15% of the gross floor area of an individual business can be utilized as an accessory use, or 30% of the combined business floor area of all of the businesses on site can be used for an accessory use. Maybe I should back up. I see. Where I'm going with this is that staff wants to bring forward, we propose to bring forward a zoning ordinance amendment to allow on-site storage within the mixed use and central business districts with a conditional use permit. And that would be as an accessory use. So in the use table, we have all of our primary uses, and then we've got our accessory uses. On-site storage would be an accessory use. Within the zoning code, accessory uses are regulated. That's under 1722.020B. And it regulates how much, like the ratio of an accessory to of a single business can be an accessory use, or in this case, because there's multiple businesses, but they're all serving one kind of larger function. You've got the tasting room, you've got the restaurant, you've got the offices, but together they're the Cliff family redevelopment. You could have 30% of all of those combined floor areas dedicated to accessory uses. So in this case, staff believes that the way forward, instead of saying one building is for the restaurant, so 15% of whatever that restaurant is how big this building can be, and 15% of however the piazza is how big this building can be. We think a better way to address this would be to look at all of those businesses, all of their footprints and their floor area, the aggregate of them, and then allow up to 30%, which is what the code allows for, so long as the applicant can show that each of those businesses are operationally linked to each other.
And this is similar, in terms of the outdoor storage, this is similar to what we heard from Charlie's in our zoning code update meeting, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And
Okay. This would apply generally then?
it would apply generally, and we've actually, before this project even came in, early on in 2025, we were having these conversations with Charlie's, and we discussed it. We brought it up to the city manager, and the city manager was supportive of us pursuing a zoning code amendment to go forward with this, to allow for on-site storage with a CUP. So this is just really further showing that it's something that's needed, and we're not pursuing that amendment specifically for this application.
I think there were others as well that spoke on behalf of needing some on-site storage, and not just Charlie's, I think, in our workshop. Okay, agree.
Yeah, okay, great.
Agree with what you're saying.
Before we have questions, because I think there's some good comments here and questions, would like to have Scott Gay providing a presentation on behalf of the potential applicant. And again, keep in mind that we've already had a presentation from staff. We've had a lot of detail, but anything else you'd like to add?
Chair Warner, before we launch into that, I just wanted, thank you, Senior Planner Neal, for preparing this slide, because I know there's a lot that we could potentially discuss today, but I think what she wanted to highlight was these two areas for sure that, we've obviously provided really good background about, but these are areas that we, just want make sure we cover and get feedback, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so those two items being the front setback and whether a variance would be supportable, or the alternative option, which would be if this is an unusual circumstance where staff could administratively determine a setback, as well as the on-site storage. And, assuming that we go forward with the zoning ordinance amendment in the coming months, would you be able to support the conditional use permit for on-site storage as proposed?
And I think we can provide our comments on that after we hear from the the potential applicant, so we have a full presentation.
Hi, everybody. I came prepared for a different meeting. Do you want here?
And make sure your mic is on there, too.
There we go. I'm Scott Gay. I work with Cliff Family Winery. We're at 709 Main. Jackie, thank you for a thorough presentation. There's a lot of moving pieces to that. So I came prepared tonight to kind of talk about the larger project, and that's really to just talk about, the scope and sort of goals of what we're trying to achieve on the site, and then I think really getting into the weeds a little bit on the setback, easement interface, and any other permitted uses on site, et cetera, and just answer any other questions. I think as Jackie shared, located on the south side of town. I was prepared to kind of go through like what's happened on the property historically. I move this quick because you guys have the opportunity to have a quick meeting. So,
Right.
Just going back into, what the property's been like since the beginning. It's sort of a bunch of uses from, residential, which was 709, which in the upper left corner there, the Cliff Family Tasting Room, 1334, the bottom right corner, that serves currently as our admin offices and also a wine tasting room. We call it our Enoteca tasting room. That's really more for hand selling, existing wine club members. And then the other buildings on site, you can see, when you go to, where we stand today, you can see where it's evolved over time. A lot of things have been refurbished, but also a lot of these buildings are kind of getting on, I think, in their, their commercial and economic lives. Just trying to keep everything looking nice on the south side of town for now, as we've been trying to work to a larger plan. So that's where we sit today. It's about 22,000 square feet that sits on site. The goal would be to remove. See, there you go. It's got a itchy trigger for it. So the goal would be to remove all existing buildings except for the existing Cliff Family Tasting Room at 709, and then, as Jackie mentioned, the 1334 at the rear of the property. The net change in the project goes from about 21,000 square feet to just over 18,000 square feet. 8,000 remain in the existing two buildings that are to be saved. So there's a 10,000 square feet more or less of new buildings on site. The goal being to bring in, we've had the operating food truck on site for, I think it's 10 years now. We've owned the property since 2015, a little bit before that. And with that, launching the food truck, and then, that's ended up becoming, I think, kind of we feel really lucky to have that be part of really a community hub. I think like on Wednesday nights, like we're doing street food, that rotates as a menu. Lots of locals come. We have a community wine club that serves discounts also on different retailers around the valley even. And I'm really trying to like engage, I think, on lots of different levels, not just bringing, new visitors in. We're trying to also, engage and continue providing, new and exciting experiences for existing wine club members. It's nice to have the problem that we're having a hard time fitting all of our wine club members in our existing facilities. We're thankful for it. But then also, I think it's just, community members at large. The goal is to, this is existing looking out from Highway 29, between the Cliff Tasting Room and Azteca. What we look at is, really the entry to the piazza, trying to really create more of a welcoming, community atmosphere. If you're going to stay and linger, great. If you're going to arrive and then radiate around town, fine too. So again, here, more of an artistic rendering for it. So here, the site plan, really we're trying to move, as per code, parking away from Highway 29, engagement towards the front of the property, opening it up, creating, engaging experiences at the site, While at the same time, I think, as Jackie mentioned, right now in the use permit, we'd originally looked at this as a limited counter service restaurant. I mean, going from what is our food truck to, a full service restaurant. When we first started talking about it, that seemed like a really big leap. But I think, to be fair, in order to scale, I think something that we would need even kitchen-wise or interior-wise to, meet the needs of the property, what is on a Tuesday in February where it might be rainy and things are quiet versus a busy July. Those are two very, big ends of the spectrum. And also, the restaurant serving the additional tasting bites that would serve the Enoteca tasting room at 1334 and the tasting room proper up front. So here again, just going to see where we're going. And I think what we're trying to do is stay sort of in character, I think, with the neighborhood a little bit while bringing some fresh, materials. And you'll see on the following slides is we're still the tallest building, or the tallest roof line would be the stage, of course, towards the back. That still sits lower than our neighbor to the north, or even, the old, which I think is a tasting room now for, Farmstead across the street. So not trying to propose anything that, is a big swing, size-wise. What do we have on site now? If you're familiar with our property, lots of stucco, cement, metal, things that age well, things that, timeless is a little bit, but I think it's, you're just trying to make something age well so it, can be around for a while. Same thing goes here for, our architectural approach with what would be new. A lot of board form concrete, exposed woods, stucco, plaster, where I think we'd get into more like pops of color, things like that would not only tie in well with the brand, I think would also create, impact for people who are driving into town. But also, I think it will allow for some interesting ways for us to do wayfinding on the site, et cetera. A lot of this is born out of, also incorporating the vine trail in. We'd like to be a very big stop on the vine trail. We'd like to be somewhere where people can come and linger, ride to, stop, whether that's early, start, leave, whatever it is. And that just, we want to be able to handle the impact of that. So that's the idea of being open for, grab and go in the morning to, lunch in the afternoon to what that might be in the evening. Probably depends on the season and the day of the week, really. Going to, I think, what Jackie was saying earlier about the storage and the zoning ordinance amendment, talking about ancillary uses or accessory uses, we look at it as an integrated project. When I said earlier about we wanting to be a stop on the Vine Trail, we're building, our plans are such that we want people to come in and use our restrooms off the Vine Trail. That heavy impact, having people to put their bikes, land, hang, whatever it is. So like, for instance, that Piazza support building there in the middle on the top of the page, that includes storage for umbrellas, et cetera, like we talked about, but it's also, 3 public restrooms, also an employee restroom, employee lockers, required lactation room, things like that for employees. And the same thing goes for the support building on the restaurant side, is trying to allow for, deliveries out of sight, out of mind a little bit, but then also have something that we can have that's large enough that minimizing trips, minimizing, wine case deliveries, food deliveries, drink deliveries, all those sorts of things to, mitigate traffic and impact on the property and in just the neighborhood. Elevations, again, this kind of goes into just the scope and size of the buildings that we have. And here you can see, from the elevation, this is coming from Highway 29, just kind of see, so we have our I think it's 50s bungalow in 709, our existing tasting room on the left, and then you have, our, well, if all shakes out, this will be our 2027 building on the right, in terms of size and scope and impact, and trying to, you can see design elements made to bring light open the building, have people have access off the Vine Trail, balancing indoor, outdoor dining, as we can, so we get year-round use and have, good reason for people to come visit our property, 365 a year. The stage as well, we've done multiple music events on the property over the last 10 years. The biggest one of which is usually the summer solstice concert, the Cliff Bar band called the Grove Valve Orchestra. Consists of about 18 people. They come in and put on a pretty big show. It's fun. We have a great time. But also, this could be something, we see it as, again, like on that community involvement, the activation of, is that, on the street food nights, is that members being able to speak from, local bike club, Vine Trail, any other, anybody else, just also from a public use standpoint to activate the property. So here, artistic, approach to it. Part of that setback we've talked about, off of the right of way, the easement for the water line, is really to just give us fair distance and allow people to pull off the Vine Trail calmly, coolly, and we're hoping that once they are able to see into the property, that's really the effect. So I think what we're really trying to accomplish, and I think I've said it here enough times, is just sort of bringing that community aspect to the property. So getting back into the setbacks that we're talking about, I think it was kind of fortuitous. In mid-December, we actually, for the second time, sprung a leak in the water line that was outside in front of the property. The first time, that was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. We didn't know it had happened. It's a high pressure water line, so as it had carved out under the soil, under the sign that we have, the soil, we were able to stick, an entire spade and our arm down to the bottom of the pit where it was just basically water. Same thing goes here. We did catch it early, which is great. But I think that's, from a practical standpoint. So, first, just hat tip to the city team. We called, they were there in 10 minutes or less. It was a SEAL team operation. It was in order to get them there, and then it's the question of how do we approach it. And I think there's an important, point to be made here is that when the team originally showed up, if you're going to be doing anything underground, they were really wanting to make sure there was nothing else in the ground, right? So, the Underground Survey of USA, before they were going to use the backhoe, to get in and under it, that was going to be too long by the time it was actually carving out. We could start to see water rising and coming out onto the street. Can't shut off the line because it shuts off the water to the city. So that's where they pull in the hydrovac truck there on the bottom right, which those things are impressive in terms of carving out and opening up. So anyway, they fit it with a sleeve. It's quick. Luckily, it was pointing downwards instead of upwards. But I just think as a practical matter, that's the hardware that's going to come in there if that happens again. So we want to make way is the main part. So yeah, that's really it.
Very good, thank you. I as a threshold, I've got a couple questions, then I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners. But I really appreciate, first of all, I appreciate you doing the pre-filing submittal. That's very good, very important, very helpful to everybody. A couple threshold questions. Rifugio LLC, in my understanding, that's owned in equal parts by you and the family trust?
In terms of ownership?
Yeah, I know you're both managers, but who owns who has title to the buildings and the land currently? Maybe that's the other question.
Rifugio Holdings LLC holds title to the parcel.
All the building, all the buildings.
Yes.
So there are no lessees on the buildings at the current time.
There are other tenants on the property.
Okay.
There have been for.
And so you anticipate, from a scheduling standpoint, no problem with any current leases that you have with tenants to move forward?
I think, there's two parts to it, really. To say that there's In terms of as a practical matter, the piece of paper and there's a lease and whether or not it exists, yeah, we have that in hand. I think as a sort of communication out, and we've really leaned into over years. It's been 10 years since we've owned the property. We've been kind of developing, different iterations of this for probably 8 of those 10 years. And a big part of that has always been communication.
Right, but again, to my first question, in terms of approvals from the owners of Rifugio LLC, which I understand is you and the family trust?
I am a consultant for Rifugio Holdings LLC, and the property manager have been for a decade.
Okay, so who owns Rifugio Trust? Rifugio LLC?
Rifugio Holdings LLC, I think if you look it up in the state, I think is owned by Gary and Kit, who are the owners of Cliff Family Winery, their family trust.
Okay, so the family trust is, you're listed as co-managers, but the family trust is the actual owners of the LLC. Okay,
Yes,
and
I am a manager of the LLC as well.
Right, okay, and they've approved this preliminary submittal in terms of the design and the intent?
Goodness, I hope so. If not, I'm over my skis.
Right, very good. I would expect.
Yeah.
would
Yes,
expect
very
that.
much.
So
Yes.
another threshold question is that if you could wave a wand, get all the paperwork done, how soon would you be able to move forward with how, if you had a wish list, how soon, based on financing, would you be able to move forward with this project to construct and operate it?
I think right now we're pushing to try and reach a demo permit in beginning of 2026.
Okay, so current year, demo permit and.
The goal is to push, to get the project going.
So what I'm assuming on that is you have financing available to move forward with the project, am I correct?
Trying to figure out how to answer that. I think we have the funds to construct the project, yes.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask you a condition on that. Is the project conditional on the Vine Trail going the route you expect in front of the project?
Is the project conditioned upon?
Could I just ask a question to Chair Warner? Are these
Sure.
like agendized items to discuss?
No, I'm asking.
So, okay.
I'm just asking the schedule for the project in terms of moving forward with the application.
But just so the applicant knows, he does not have to answer these questions?
It doesn't have to. I'm
just
asking
wanted
you
to
as
double
the schedule, because schedule depends in part on financing and other matters like ownership, things like that. So again, you obviously don't have to answer, but my standpoint, that helps in terms of determining how soon you could move forward with your application and how soon you would like to see approval.
I think as we approached this process, sitting with city staff, was that we were using this process as what really is a test fit for what we're trying to do on the project. I think not just economically, I think also entitlements, zoning, also what goes into a project like this operationally, in terms of staffing, timing, parking, water neutrality, all these sorts of things, really trying to move. There's a lot of things that we've got to fit together in advance of that. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm fine in concept because I think there are details to be worked out. I'm fine in both the idea of an administrative grant of the greater setback. Again, it seems like it's a practical restriction in reality that 10-foot setback doesn't make practical sense. And again, as we've discussed in our overall discussion of zoning code updates, I think a generalized amendment to the ordinance to allow storage, again, based on staff review and details and all that. Again, we don't make that decision. The city council makes that decision. So those are my 2 comments on those 2 issues. I'm very, as Commissioner Furdeck said, I'm usually thinking of setbacks as being a maximum setback as opposed to a minimum. So I'm fine on those 2 items if that gives staff guidance. Those are the only questions I had. Open it up for my fellow commissioners with their questions.
Just a couple things. I'm excited about this project.
Thank you.
So I'm also in favor of a larger setback and encourage it. Obviously, under the provision that there's no car parking in the front, because I'm embracing the reason for the reason why there might be minimum setbacks. But obviously, that's not your intention with this project. So as long as the, intent and the design of the project is more pedestrian oriented, in the front. And also, I absolutely agree that we should look at the totality of the project in terms of the 30% allowance on the accessory buildings. So I'm in favor of that. I am curious, if I recall that stretch of Vidovich, there, other than maybe the side of your tasting room, where I think there is a sidewalk. The sidewalk doesn't go the length of the property.
No.
Is your intention to put sidewalk down there?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think that would be an enhancement, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
The other thing I would just encourage, and in terms of full disclosure, I am on the board of Nimbus Arts, so I would love to see public art as part of the project. I can imagine you doing wonderful things there, so I would just love to see that as part of the project.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, that's definitely something we're trying to consider. There's a lot of artwork actually that was commissioned originally also as part of the original Cliff Bar Incorporated offices, which since the owners have sold that business, that was a couple of years back. But we have a lot of that art in storage, which is big, like bike sculptures. Like we have a thing called the Bike Comet, which starts from like small chains and gears and then ends up, basically starring into something larger. But yes, absolutely.
Great.
So, thank you for the presentations. I am glad, Senior Planner Jackie O'Neill, thank you for bringing up this variance alt. I know we talked a little bit today, and I had said I thought maybe we could waive this variance because it was permitted and allowed before on the setback. So I guess similar to what we were just reviewing about the signs, I would say it would be great maybe to have, this is not project related, but a side-by-side comparison of what the service commercial and this mixed use designation now says. So before it was service commercial and it changed as mixed use. And it would just, based on that diagram that you showed, how, a lot of these are kind of woven together. And this just happened in 2023 in the zoning code update. I'd just like to see kind of, like how far they are off. And if there is any, leeway like that we're giving. I mean, I think the easement is a good leeway for this other alternate administrative review. I would just say that even in areas where there weren't easements, but if they were, subject to a larger setback before and just changed, that we can kind of look at that and understand that, because I think a lot of, as we've noticed today, just existing non-conforming is happening quite a bit, and applicants, these things are costly. I think variances are like $10,000, right? Or something, $6,000, or, I mean, it just adds up on top of all of the fees doing projects. So I think, with St. Helena wanting to thrive and bring businesses back, I think our zoning code, I would love just to know how the zoning code designation changed. And then if in that change it it gave hardship to applicants because of the change, that there could be some sort of analysis of that. And, so as far as, the 20 feet, I personally don't see any issue, just because the surrounding context, the easement, it seems like very much like a administrative support to, reasonable request. Also, given that they were previously needing 35 feet. So then the other one was not just setback, but the other one was what again? Remind me. Storage, yes. I would like as well to make sure businesses can have the functional spaces that they need in order to function well. And if that means we need to take a look at the code a little bit more, I think it would be worth it, so that businesses can serve their business as well. And I think everybody gains from that. I think residents gain from that, and people who own the properties gain from that, and people working gain from that. So I think it's worth it. So
I want to just end up saying I'm very excited as well. Again, knowing that area very well, and knowing that what you're proposing is, as I think Commissioner Covell and Commissioner Furtick are saying, is really revitalizing an already vital place for the city and for our residents. In concept, I think it's great that you're moving forward, and my question about how soon can you move forward is based on that positive reaction. So thank you. Has staff received the...
I have one more thing.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
Sure, go
I
ahead.
forgot one thing. As far as one thing that I asked the applicant is just kind of neighborhood outreach, so that when this project comes forth, it doesn't become a surprise to anybody in a negative way. I don't know if they could see it that way. I mean, I think it seems like a pretty positive project for, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that, but I would just, I know I had asked them, staff as well, about Azteca, and it's really not my business what happens with Azteca, but I would just want to make sure there is a happy solution to this situation, because it seems like if they were to find a new location, it would be like a win-win-win situation. But again,
Absolutely, yes, yeah. I mean, I think that there's multiple tenants on site too, right? So, first off is Hayfork Wines, the Dodds and the Whites, that they are also our farmers. White Vineyard Management farms for us all of our, I think it's about 80 acres, CCOF certified. And that's kind of been the approach from the beginning, like with them, has always been bigger project coming. We don't know when, we don't know how, but that's the sites. Same thing goes for, AMR, that's the City of St. Helena Ambulance. Where do they want to go? I think, I talked before about, buildings really getting towards the end of their, not just economic, but I think their practical life. The building they're in now originally crossed the parcel line. This is, I think 20 years ago, was actually picked up and then rotated, so that sat on our parcel at the time. And I don't know if that, I don't even know if that building meets their needs, like in terms of just what their rules and regulations are for staffing their team. But they use it, they need it, and it's really nice to have someone sitting in a rig at night in the back of the property. It definitely is a deterrent for people who have come back there, security wise. Yeah, and to Azteca, we've followed that same approach, which is, to communicate. And I think part of that is also, they're masters of their own destiny as well. It's been it's a bigger issue, because I think they're valuable in the community. That's, and I think that stepping back and seeing, historically, it's been very difficult to find somewhere to go, for any business, really, to find something that is a fit. But I think that's changed a lot in town, I think, over the last, 6 to 8 months. We've talked about, multiple things that have hit the paper, whether that's A&W or, Sunshine or, to disclose, I own a building that's across the street from Central Valley that is 4,000 square feet and has an existing building permit for a 30-seat outdoor dining and ancillary market. In addition, the Azteca also owns a building in town across the street from Umpqua or Columbia Bank now, is it? Which is zone service commercial and would, there be a permitted use there as well. So
Yeah. Those kinds of conversations helps with the neighbors and the outreach and just kind of getting more buy-in in the community and,
Yeah, 100%.
that's, gosh, there was one more question that I had. I'm at that age where things just go.
While you're thinking of that, I want to commend Commissioner Cavell for that comment about outreach and also for hearing about how you have been really keeping constant communication with your tenants and that they have alternatives.
Yeah.
So thank you, Commissioner Cavell. That was a great insight.
It's a bit of a balancing game, to be honest, of like trying to both respect someone's business and where they're at and the privacy and letting them, run their own business while at the same time trying to not surprise and, taking advantage of a process like this, which allows us to, like I said, do a test fit, for what we're thinking long-term,
I just remembered my question.
Okay.
So since that you've been working on this for 8 years, and my understanding this is mixed use, it allows housing? Curious to know if housing was ever in your guys's just for service kind of situation and employees and things like that.
No, it hasn't been really because I think of the dimensions and everything of the parcel in terms of like trying to fit buildings and also then park for the buildings. That's kind of one of the big restrictions. I think the housing element I think was a little bit also I think to affect the parcel to the south of us, which I think it entertained some housing at some point as part of a development agreement for a hotel. So nope.
I do just want to make one comment in response to your comment about public outreach. This item was duly noticed, so it was in the newspaper and also went to the 300-foot radius. So people were noticed about this. Formal application would also be duly noticed. I've also been in informal conversations with Azteca Market about places within our community. So they are very much like seeing this on the horizon and starting to do their own research and analysis. And we're working with them in the planning division to help them see their future dreams through. So I wanted to bring that to light, and then also hearing that it sounds like there's unanimous support for us to move forward with that alternative action where the community development director could establish a setback. So with that being said, I know that the next step for us in the process will be to reach out to our legal counsel to make sure that we have full buy-in from our city attorney, that that's an appropriate path forward.
So again, and subject to your detailed review of the actual proposal, I'm wondering, speaking of that, I'm wondering why, again, it's up to our commissioners to think about this, why we wouldn't move forward on a parallel path right now with moving forward with a zoning ordinance amendment for outdoor storage.
Staff does have plans to bring the zoning ordinance amendment forward likely in the next several months. So hopefully to have that resolved and through city council ahead of.
Could it be any faster than the next several months? I don't want to burden staff, but it seems pretty straightforward.
I am hoping to have it on your agenda within the next 2 meetings.
Good.
I mean, I guess this is a different topic, but weren't we going to have more December 16th, zoning code discussions? So
I'm
this
just-
seems like part of that and not really part of.
Sure.
this, right?
This is future agenda items, absolutely. Okay, any other guidance to staff or any other questions for the potential applicant? And thank you for coming out.
Thank
too.
you. I appreciate the process and being able to just sort of
That's very good.
bring it to a public process, so thank you.
Okay, I think we finished that item. We only have two other substantive items. One is department reports or scheduled matters. Any department reports?
Just briefly, yes. So we are still compiling all the feedback from the December 16th meeting. And I have one of my staff that will be compiling a staff report. And when our interim planning director arrives in the beginning of February, I will kind of lock down a date that he would like to bring that to the planning commission. But yeah, we're still compiling the feedback on that. And then speaking of our next meeting, February 3rd, we will have at least 2 items on that agenda.
Okay, well, we have another aspect of department reports that I think we as commissioners, and when we have our other commissioners in front, we will discuss, that involve our thank you to you and a little bit of maybe praise and maybe even a little personal gift of some kind at the right point in time. So, but your February meeting is not your last, or is this your last?
February 3rd is my last meeting.
Okay, all right. Well, we're giving a warning that you may have to expect a little bit of a surprise there for you. So that's our department report to you. All right. No other department agenda forecast? You mentioned.
Can I
think.
just add that
Yes.
I think this would fall under a department report. I'm not sure. You can tell me. But I did, Director DeRosa did send out a note, I think, to all of us about the Planning Commissioner Academy down in Southern California, noting that I was interested in asking if any of the other commissioners were interested. I think there were none. I want to report that I did register. I am officially signed up. I will report back. It's not until March, so it'll be some time, but I am officially registered.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for
Yeah.
representing us on that.
I have a question because I wanted to follow up on the January review of the general plan, which is part of the zoning code that the planning commission is supposed to be kind of working on. Is there an update on that?
And any update, Maya, on the general plan review?
Are you speaking about the general plan, the totality, or the housing? Because that's something. So we, as you know, with the housing element and the safety element, we completed the last update of that in 2023 when we got those certified in September. That was a significant lift by staff and expensive endeavor. We have not been direct. So the council is think of them as the keeper of the authority over the general plan, and more the planning commission administers the zoning code in parallel conformance with the general plan. So the council to date has not specifically directed staff to open up the general plan or revisit the policies. So that would be something that would have to come from them, and I would ask them to be very specific on something they'd want to study. But the whole purpose of the zoning code update that we recently had a check-in about in December was actually, the impetus for that was the general plan update in 2019 to bring it into conformance with a number of policy areas that we needed, like it said, adopt a preservation ordinance, which we did, create a mixed-use zoning category, which we did, and thus the zone changes. So that's not a work effort that's on our radar, but I do know that there is going to be a follow-up discussion with the Planning Commission about the zoning code feedback we received and what report you want to give to the council.
So, and I think if I recall correctly, and Commissioner Covell should correct me, but I think she was referring to a particular provision of our general plan ordinance that stipulates or provides for a review, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's in the zoning code, and it's
Okay.
the annual review, and it was just the planning commission in January is supposed to, I don't have the exact words in front of me, but review and see how the general plan is.
Okay. Excuse me, I recall part of my answer was that we're actually doing that on an annual basis on the housing side because we have to report to HCD on our housing starts. But in terms of the entire general plan, that's something that maybe our new assistant planner could help us do because we are very, very busy in our department right now with development applications that just have not come yet right now to Planning Commission. So it's something that I think would be a great thing to get back into the habit of doing, but we just haven't had the bandwidth to do it.
I wonder how that's even practical. Like, how do you even review an entire general plan every year?
Well, in other cities, what you do is actually they have compartmentalized the end of every chapter is the implementation actions, and it says by so-and-so do this and who's responsible, and then you can report out on it. Or
So I have the word verbiage. It's actually not the staff. It's actually the Planning Commission. So it's 1706-070 annual review. At least once a year, generally in January, the Planning Commission shall conduct a comprehensive review of the general plan, map, and text, and report its findings to the City Council. So there's actually, it doesn't say staff. It just says us, the Planning Commission, is supposed to conduct a comprehensive review of the general plan and report back to the City Council. So I don't know if that's something we have to do.
Yeah, and again, I'm one who wants to make sure that if there's a requirement in our municipal code, we find some way to do it, like you suggest, and if staff isn't able to take that on, and again, I don't want to have staff burdened to do something that takes away from actual application.
Oh, yeah. And this doesn't say staff, so
No,
that's
no, it
the.
says planning. It says planning, which is good.
So I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that because it's supposed to be done every year and generally in January, which is this month.
Here's what I suggest, and again, it's not a violation of agenda or Brown Act. Why don't you and I together look at what we might want to agendize in the future, or recommend to agendize on exactly that requirement?
Or maybe you can also ask legal counsel just to see what their interpretation to make sure we're just doing this.
Yes,
correctly.
well, I absolutely do that. But if they come back and say, you don't have to do it, I would, it says what it says. You very accurately referenced what it says. It says what it says, and we ought to figure out a way how we can do it. I don't want to burden staff, but I think you've spent a lot of time on the general plan. So have I, frankly, so have all our commissioners. But we can set up, we can discuss without violating a Brown Act, two of us, to kind of discuss what we might bring back as an agenda item to recommend to staff and to the commission to do exactly what you say.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to work with you to do that.
Okay, and then I do just want to make a clarification. I think there was something that was said at a governance meeting where the passage that I read out loud during the a planning commission hearing was out of date, and that there was a new planning commission handbook, and we all received that planning commission handbook, and I just want to report, and I've had conversations with staff that this passage that I read is in both books. It actually in both books. So just wanted to make sure that
Fair.
gets clear.
But I'd be happy to work with you on this issue of the review of the general plan and see what we can agendize without overly burdening staff. So that's a good point. Anything else for future agendas other than more fun to have on February 2nd? With that, I
Third.
come... Third, right. Oh, Groundhog Day keeps occurring, right? With that, I come to what was John Pont's favorite time of the meeting, and that is adjournment. We are hereby adjourned, and thanks, everybody. Thank you, staff. Good presentations today, too. Very, very thorough, particularly on...
Yes, thank you very much.
New exciting, and thank you, everybody. All right, Happy New Year.
We got through that faster than I thought.
Yeah. All right, let's go get home and get warm.